This is your news source evening bulletin for today, Thursday, the 22nd day of October in the year 2020. I'm Gordon Mosley. Here's what we're tracking tonight. Describing one of the election petition cases as a full-blown trial, Chief Justice Roxanne George intends to hear the two cases together despite concerns by the attorneys for the two petitioners. Attorneys Mario Robertson and Senior Counsel Roysdale Ford, who are representing the petitioners in the two cases, told the Chief Justice this afternoon that while the two cases may arrive at the same destination in terms of the relief being sought, they would prefer for the two petitions to be heard separately, so that with all the lawyers involved, there is no confusion.
Just by the court's actions today, it appears that the court intends to hear these matters together.
Yes. That's a good point. Yes.
Your Honor, we believe that the petitions are sufficiently different that the court may wish to consider hearing them separately. There is a very slight overlap in the issues raised between the two petitions, but for the most part, Petition 99 goes into substantial detail, would require a substantial amount of evidence, and the court may find it more convenient to deal with that separately than Petition 88.
Your Honor was saying that in relation to the two petitions and the hearing, I would ask Your Honor not to come to a settled decision on that as yet. Your Honor, the reason being, Your Honor, that in relation to the petition 88, the one filed by myself and the lawyers in this petition, it raises one, really and truly one substantial legal issue. That is whether the Section 22 is unconstitutional, and that is the sole issue, and all the other reliefs filed, Your Honor, or requested, are simply consequential in relation to that. So Your Honor, in my view, Your Honor, I believe that that petition could be heard and determined separately and independently from all the evidential issues which seem to be required for the second petition, Your Honor.
The Chief Justice, while noting the concerns, gave the assurance that there will not be any confusion coming from her side.
Be assured. Let me put it this way. I pray God that I will not be confused, so that when I make the orders, they will apply to the relevant petition. But to my mind, it makes no sense where we have petitions that are asking for almost exactly the same reliefs, that they be heard separately.
During the case management conference this afternoon, the Chief Justice laid out clear rules for the commencement of the two petitions. Applications in the two cases are to be filed within the next 2 weeks, with submissions and responses coming just after. The attorneys for Vice President Bharat Jagdeo, who is a respondent in the matter, have already indicated to the court that they intend to file an application that brings into question whether all of the rules and procedures were followed in the serving of the petition on their client. One of the petition cases has mainly one issue, and that is whether the recount order that allowed for the recount and the eventual declaration is valid.
Seeks to raise for the court's consideration as part of the election petition filed under the National Assembly Validity of Election Act, the issues as to, with respect to the validity of Order 60 of 2020, under which the recount was held and the results of the declarations were made. Your Honor, this petition also seeks to raise the issues as to the validity of Section 22 of the Election Laws Amendment Act, because it was under that provision that Order 60 of 2020 was brought into effect.
It is the second case that the Chief Justice said is expected to be a full-blown trial, as witnesses will be called and will have to face questioning and cross-examination. Attorney Mario Robertson.
Your Honor, Petition 99 of 2020 is based on allegations of several irregularities in the conduct of the elections. Your Honor, I would not propose to go through each of them in detail, but they include widespread voter impersonation, widespread non-compliance with documentation as is required, a flawed voters list to begin with, and several other irregularities, Your Honor.
Meanwhile, the Guyana Elections Commission and its chief election officer have not secured counsel as yet in the petition cases. GCOM Commissioner and attorney Says Kunraj told the court that there will be movement in that area soon. The chief election officer is currently before the court on multiple charges related to allegations of electoral fraud in connection with the same elections. Most of the parties that contested the elections and have been named as respondents in the petitions have entered appearances to participate in the proceedings. At least 3 parties had no representatives today. The Chief Justice warned a large battery of lawyers taking part in the petition cases that they should not repeat and copy the same information that might be presented in the cases as they present their arguments and responses. The petitioners are expected to file all of their submissions by the 18th of December, with responses expected on or before the 5th of January. The petitioners want the court to determine the legality of the 2020 elections and the results that led to the declaration and the allocation of seats in the National Assembly. More news coming up in a moment. Mobile Special and all other mobile lubricants are distributed by Sol Guyana Inc. Mobile Special and all other mobile lubricants are distributed by Sol Guyana Inc.
For all the Zoom hashouts and recipe tryouts, the world changed and we were right there, standing with you, always near, getting closer in so many ways, laughing together as we face these days. And because we are Caribbean, we've got a special insight that tells us there's no need to worry, world. We'll be all right.
But as a people we have
weathered every storm
and risen to every challenge.
Because it is the people of Guyana
that gives it its strength.
All the people,
regardless of race,
class, or religion,
we are one people, one strength.
And now is our time. A time to rise. Together, we rise.
Mobile Special and all other mobile lubricants are distributed by Sol Guyana Inc. Mobile Special and all other mobile lubricants are distributed by Sol Guyana Inc. Welcome back. The attorneys representing PPP General Secretary Vice President Barrett Jagdeo in the election petition cases have signaled their intention to file applications in the matter over the service of the petitions and their client. Senior Counsel Douglas Mendez, during the case management conference for the election petition cases this afternoon, raised questions about the serving of the petitions on his client Barrett Jagdeo and whether that was done in keeping with the strict rules governing election petition cases. Mr. Mendez told the court that Mr. Jagdeo, who is a respondent in the matter, was not properly served.
We understand that an order was made that the petition be served on Mr. Jagdeo by registered post. We have our inquiries so far have indicated that they have not yet been delivered by registered post. We have been attempting as best as possible to obtain copies of the documents that was filed in support of the application that was made. From what we have, from the little bit that we understand so far, we haven't seen, for example, the orders that were made by the court, but we are concerned that the application that was made, certainly in relation to number 88, did not comply with the rules, and the order that was made in 99 did not comply with the rules. In other words, what the rules require is that you seek an order from the court, that the court is satisfied that the actions that were taken thus far were sufficient for service purposes, and therefore in effect service is deemed to have taken place. It does not appear that the orders reflect that.
The attorney made it clear that the view expressed to the court today is only a provisional one and could change once additional information and clarity are received, but in the meanwhile he will move ahead with the application to formally express the concerns and position of his client, Mr. Marajagdeo. The application is expected to be filed within weeks. In its effort to support online learning during the COVID-19 pandemic, the Guyana Telephone and Telegraph Company, GTT, has announced that it will be allowing students to visit a number of educational websites without any internet data plan. The decision follows the signing of a Memorandum of Understanding with the Ministry of Education to zero-rate several educational websites on behalf of students and children in Guyana. Among the websites persons can now browse without a data plan are profuturo.education, essentialschools.org, code.org, wikipedia.org, educationgy.org, guianalearningchannel.com, and hydromed.gov.gy. Chief Executive Officer at GTT, Justin Ned, said the company is always willing to collaborate to rise above challenges in the society.
We're happy to partner with the ministry in supporting online learning during this pandemic. We acknowledge the effort of the ministry, those in the teaching profession, parents and guardians to ensure that learning continues apace. It is, therefore, our hope that our contribution will go a long way in molding the minds of future generations.
The acting chief planning officer at the Ministry of Education, Nicola Johnson, said the ministry is grateful for GTT's partnership in helping to meet the learning needs of students and teachers across the country. Education Minister Priyamanik Chan, while declaring that there is currently no timeline for the reopening of schools as yet, has indicated that educators are looking at the possibility of first reopening schools for those students preparing for the regional examinations, CSEC and CAPE. Appearing on the Jumpstart radio show on Wednesday, the Education Minister explained that while local examinations may be under the control of her ministry, the regional exams are under direct control of the regional body. She said CXC appears to be moving ahead with its preparations for next year's examinations already, even as many schools across the region remain closed because of the coronavirus pandemic.
We do not control how and when CXC sets exams. We have had conversations with CXC from my level, not junior levels, to the level of the registrar and the body, about what they're going to do with the 2021 CSEC exams. And while they say to us, Wednesday we had a meeting, they said very clearly a decision has not been made, but we still see a timetable published. So we have to be ready. SBAs would have started or ought to have started in April of this year, to be able to write in 2021. And so we have to look at how we can get those students prepared for those exams.
With regard to local common entrance examinations for next year, Ms. Manik Chan said issues in relation to that exam could easily be addressed.
Common entrance, NGSA, all the assessments, grades 2, 4, 6, 9, those are our local exams, and we could determine how, when, and even if we do them. This year, we took a decision not to have the grades 2 and 4 and 9 assessment because it would have been checking a box. It would not have been assessing what kids knew or what we taught because we didn't get to teach. The common entrance exam is our exam. There are very many options we can examine. It's a placement exam. It's not an assessment of who's bright and who's not. All our kids are good, and all of them will get a chance to write CXC, but how do we place them is what that exam is usually taken to determine. And there are tons of options, including writing it much later, doing only a particular paper, not writing it at all, testing up to a certain level, testing the full level. I mean, we have a range of options. That is our exam, and in consultation with teachers, parents, and students, we will make the best decisions forward. But I'm not too concerned about the NGSA, either of them, 2, 4, or 6, because those are things we can adjust accordingly here in Guyana.
It was explained that the Ministry of Education will be maintaining the schools and ensuring that they are all properly prepared for the eventual reopening. Earlier this week, it was announced that in the next 2 weeks, the Education Ministry will be making worksheets available for all grades in primary to secondary schools all across the country. Parents are being asked to check with the schools to pick up those worksheets. A group of supporters of PNC Chairperson Valda Lawrence picketed outside the office of the Director of Public Prosecutions today over the charges being faced by Mrs. Lawrence in relation to allegations of electoral fraud. The protesters were loud in their call for the charges to be dropped in the wake of the decision by the same DPP to drop larceny charges against Attorney General Anil Nandlal. Armed with placards, a group of mostly women called on the DPP to act in a professional manner and not bow to political pressure. The PNC chairperson has appeared before the magistrate's court 3 times in the past 2 months to face various allegations of forgery and conspiracy to defraud, all related to allegations of electoral fraud. The charges were first filed privately by PPP member Charles Ramson Jr. The attorneys for the PNC chairperson had made a request for the charges to be thrown out by the DPP. Instead, the DPP directed the police to launch a full investigation into the same allegations. The police came up with the same charges that were filed by Ramson and moved swiftly to the court to file the charges, even as the prosecutor in the matters did not appear ready to proceed. The matters are still before the courts. Let's tell you now that 2 of the 3 prisoners who escaped from the Lusignan jail on Tuesday night have been recaptured. Director of Prisons Gladwin Samuels confirmed this morning that the 2 prisoners, Alex Matthias and Arnold Kennedy, were recaptured late Wednesday along the Zealand Public Road, East Bank, Essequibo. The 2 who are already before the courts on separate murder charges will now face additional charges for escaping from lawful custody. Meanwhile, the hunt is ongoing for the 3rd escapee, Mark Ruffino. The 3 were discovered missing after an early morning head count at the prison on Wednesday, as they reportedly escaped by jumping over the southern fence at the prison facility. The police force and the prison service are asking that anyone with information about the remaining escapee to make urgent contact with the nearest police station. Shock and sadness have gripped the East Ronville family as they mourn the murder of 18-year-old Adrian Perlette. The teenager was attacked and stabbed to death last evening in the Work and Rest community after 2 other youths approached him demanding money. The young man's sister, Candace Murray, spoke to News Source today while fighting back tears and said her brother did not deserve to be murdered.
Right now we need justice. I need justice for my brother, right? Because no matter how bad a person me, you're not supposed to kill him, right? No matter what the person do, better hand them over to the law. Don't take a life, right? Because somebody brother, somebody son. And I miss my brother, and I love my brother.
She acknowledged that her brother was known for keeping bad company at times, but added that in the home he was the best brother anyone can ask for.
Well, he helped, when he did wrong, he alright, and so he helpful, yes. He's a very nice person, like I said just now, other than always, with straying with friends or whatever. But otherwise, he alright.
According to reports, a teenager who worked as a butcher was stabbed to the chest outside of a friend's house at Hoppy Lane last evening. Persons in the area said a row erupted between the teen and the 2 young men who approached him demanding money. Screams were later heard. The 2 assailants were known to him, and it is suspected that he might have owed them money. Investigators have arrested 2 suspects and are seeking additional suspects in the matter. Across the region is coming up next. Mobile Delvac and all other mobile lubricants are distributed by Salt Guyana Inc. Mobile Delvac and all other mobile lubricants are distributed by Salt Guyana Inc.
We all know a strong educational foundation is a key to successful learning. Global Technology combines award-winning curriculum with innovative technology and teacher support to help students reach their potential. Our online platform creates an engaging learning experience. Using any device, you can be a part of amazing class discussions, collaborate with others, and have access to virtual learning software. With our multiple payment methods, you will never have to leave home. Find out how Global Technology can allow you to learn anything, anywhere, at any time.
Been through it all.
But as a people, we have
Weathered every storm.
And risen to every challenge.
Because it is the people of Guyana
That gives it its strength.
all the people,
Regardless of race,
class, or religion.
we are one people, one strength.
And now is our time. A time to rise. Together, we rise.
Mobile Delvac and all other mobile lubricants are distributed by Salt Guyana Inc. Mobile Delvac and all other mobile lubricants are distributed by Salt Guyana Inc. Across the region right now, the coronavirus pandemic has hit Latin America and the Caribbean harder than other parts of the world, both in human and economic terms. The relatively large human toll is evident. With only 8.2% of the world population, the region had 28% of cases and 34% of deaths by the end of September. In the new regional economic outlook by the IMF, it projects a real GDP contraction of 8.1% in 2020. Unlike in previous recessions, employment contracted more strongly than GDP in the second quarter of 2020, 20% on the average for the 5 largest countries and up to 40% in Peru. The report says two structural characteristics of Latin American and Caribbean economies contributed to the relatively larger economic impact. Comparatively more people work in activities that require close physical proximity, and less people have jobs in which teleworking is feasible. Almost 45% of jobs are in contact-intensive sectors like restaurants, retail stores, or public transportation across Latin America and the Caribbean. Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro has said his government will not buy a Chinese-made COVID-19 vaccine, a day after his health minister said it would be added to the immunization program. Responding to a supporter on social media who urged him not to buy the vaccine, Mr. Bolsonaro said the country will not be buying the Chinese vaccine. He said the vaccine had not yet finalized its trials. Brazil has been one of the countries worst affected by coronavirus. It has had nearly 5.3 million confirmed cases, the third highest tally in the world, after the US and India, and is second only to the US in terms of deaths, with nearly 155,000 registered deaths so far. On Tuesday, the health minister said the federal government had reached a deal with Sao Paulo state to buy 46 million doses of the vaccine CoronaVac, which is being tested by that state's research center. And finally tonight, international news. More gunfire has erupted and jailbreaks have been reported in Nigeria as unrest over the shooting of protesters in its biggest city continues. Rights group Amnesty International said security forces killed at least 12 people in Lagos on Tuesday. Nigeria's army has denied killing demonstrators in the area, provoking more anger. The protest began about 2 weeks ago with mostly young people, demanding the disbandment of a notorious police unit. The Special Anti-Robbery Squad called SARS, which had been at the center of the protests against police brutality, was dissolved on the 11th of October. Using the hashtag #EndSARS, protesters rallied crowds to the streets. The shooting has spurred global calls for those responsible to be held to account. And that's your News Source Evening Bulletin for tonight. I'm Gordon Mosley, reporting.